Okay, so it's the time to move to the next lab, which is Manage Virtual Machines. I hope you have gone through the module, which is Administrator Virtual Machines, and we understood the basics of virtual machine configurations. In this lab, we are going to focus on how we can manage virtual machines and what kind of things we have to keep in mind while practically creating virtual machines in the Azure cloud. As usual, the first thing first, we are going to open our portal.azure.com. I have logged into my lab environment. I'm just going to use portal.azure.com and I'll log into using the lab user which is associated with this, providing the lab user the password. And once this is done, we are going to go into the Cloud Shell icon first. So basically in this particular lab, we are going to follow the steps as per the lab environment. And the first thing which they are showing me is I have to configure my Cloud Shell first. Remember, this is the small tiny icon here on the top of this navigation bar, which is a Cloud Shell icon. I'm going to click on that. Alternatively, you can also open shell.azure.com, which is also going to open the Cloud Shell. I am going to choose PowerShell as it is suggested in this particular lab instructions. And then on the getting started screen, which is right now, we are going to choose mount storage account. We are going to choose our subscription associated with that, and then we will click on apply. When we do this thing, this is actually going to ask me whether you want to create a storage account or you want this Azure cloud to create it automatically. As per the instructions, we are going to select that I want to create a storage account, and I'm going to provide a meaningful name and the configuration for that. The storage account name, we are giving something like this, and inside that the file share name is also going to be something like this. Once we provide the names, we have to choose a resource group. Remember, in this case, they are saying select the existing resource group, and that is not Network Watcher RG. So basically, this is the resource group which they are talking about. For our lab number 8, we have RG8. And for the region, we are going to choose East US. Even though we are from India right now, I am choosing East US because that's the preferable region for this lab environment. I'll click on create, and that's going to take few moments to configure my Cloud Shell storage. And then my Cloud Shell is going to be working where I can execute my commands. Let's wait for a few moments. It will be done. Meanwhile, once the Cloud Shell initializes, you can put your text in the prompt and you can exit the shell. So basically, we are going to provide this thing. We are going to use this thing, but we don't need to use it right now. So we'll just click on next. This is the time we are going to actually start the instructions of this lab number 8, which is managing virtual machines. And in this case, as you can see here, that we are going to focus on the region which is East US. So that is what we are going to focus in this lab environment. Now, before we start, let's focus on what kind of things we are going to do in this lab. As you can see here, we are going to create a virtual machine using Azure Portal. We are also going to deploy virtual machines with the template. We can also create a virtual machine with PowerShell, as well as we can use virtual machine creation with Azure CLI. Now, all these 4 different options are there to create a virtual machine in Azure Cloud. What kind of things we are going to do? Well, if you focus on the task, we are going to focus on 6 different tasks. In the first one, we are going to deploy zone resilient Azure virtual machines by using Azure Portal. And that's the first thing which we will do. After that, we want to manage compute and storage scaling of the virtual machine. Then we will create configure Azure Virtual Machine scale set, which is basically allowing me to create multiple virtual machine instances at the same time. And it can actually create hundreds of virtual machines inside the scale set. We'll scale Azure Virtual Machine scale set accordingly. We will create a virtual machine using Azure PowerShell, as well as we are going to create a virtual machine using CLI also. Remember, this task number 5 and 6 both are optional, but we will do it because it's going to be important when you are focusing on certification exam. They are maybe going to ask you certain questions with the commands associated with Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI. And that's the reason task 5 and 6 is also important, even though it is optional. The architectural diagram is very simple. We are just going to create virtual machines and we are going to associate the scaling configurations with that. So let's just focus on the steps first. Cloud Shell is there. I'm going to minimize the Cloud Shell for the time being right now, and we will focus on the Azure Portal. First, we have to search for virtual machines. So it is actually here itself. So I'm just going to click on virtual machines. When I click on the create option here, it's going to give me that what I want to do. I want to create an Azure virtual machine, or I want to create an Azure virtual machine with preset configuration or some other related things. I am going to select Azure virtual machine. In the create virtual machine page on the basics tab, we are going to select our resource group. We're going to provide some kind of a meaningful name associations with this, which is like AZ-104 VM1 and VM2, which is what we are trying to create. Remember one thing before we do this thing. This is basically asking us that in the basics tabs in the availability zone drop down, you're going to select a check mark next to zone 2. This should select both zone 1 and zone 2. So basically we are going to configure availability zone, and then in this we are going to say that we want to create a virtual machine in zone 1 and zone 2. Basically because of this we are directly trying to say that we are going to create two virtual machines at the same time, and both virtual machines will be distributed across two different zones. You can see the moment we do this, it's automatically setting up some virtual machine name like my VM1, my VM2. I don't want this name. I want a name like AZ-104-VM1. So let me just change it to this one. I'm going to click on edit names, and then I'm going to change the name of the virtual machines to AZ-104-VM1. And for the second one, it's going to be AZ-104-VM2. And once we are done with editing name, these are going to be the two virtual machines which are there. In the region, we are going to choose East US2 as it is suggested here. In the availability options, we have selected availability zone already with the first and the second zone selected with that. Security type, we are going to choose standard. Image, we are going to choose Windows Server 2019 with Gen 2. So this is the one which we are going to select. In the spot instance, we do not want spot instance kind of a configuration, so that is fine. We are going to select the size, which is standard D2S V3 with the 2 CPUs and 8 GB memory, so that is also perfectly fine. We don't need to change it. In the administrator account, we are going to provide local admin as a username, and I'm going to provide one secure password. I hope you will take care of your password. Once you're done with this, I think everything else is fine. In the public and bound ports, we are going to choose none. So basically we do not want to keep any RDP port open for this one. So that's the reason we are choosing none. And I think that is it for the basic one. We'll click on next and we'll go to the disk section, in which we want to make sure that our operating system disk size is actually premium SSD. You can see the disk type is premium SSD, which is already selected here. By default is going to create a 127 GB size of image, which is perfectly fine. And then in the delete with VM, which is already selected. So basically once the virtual machine is deleted, this is going to delete the disk also with that, which is perfectly fine. Do I need to enable ultra disk compatibility? Well, we do not want that, so that is how it is mentioned here. Step number 5 is also all good. We'll click next. We'll go to networking, in which we want to make sure that our virtual network, subnet and public IP addresses are visible there. Once we focus on this, there is a check mark which is delete public IP and NIC when VM is deleted. This kind of a check mark is actually available here. I'm going to select this value. So this is showing me that it should be checked. And then load balancing options, we are going to choose none. We do not want any load balancer as of now. If we want, we can configure that also right now. After this, in the management section, we have to focus on the value which is saying patch orchestration options. In this, we are going to scroll down. We'll get a patch orchestration options, and we'll select the value of this, which is going to be Azure orchestrated. So basically in this case, orchestration patches across availability sets best for workload availability is what we are selecting right now, and Azure is going to orchestrate that automatically. After this, we will click on next and we will go for the monitoring section, where we are basically not doing much things. We are just going to disable boot diagnostics because I do not want to enable any boot diagnostics with this. This is a basic configuration which we are going with right now. I'll click on review plus create, and if the validation passed, we will just click on create. Basically what we have done right now, we created two virtual machines using Azure Portal, and these two virtual machines will be part of my availability zone configuration. So it's actually configured for high availability. And if the validation passed, we'll wait for some time and it's going to start the deployment, and then after that it's going to complete the deployment, and we will be able to see and check those two virtual machines. Let's wait for this deployment to complete. Yes, deployment is successfully completed. Let me click on go to resource. It's first taking me to Azure 104 VM1 and it's showing me that the status of the virtual machine is successfully running. As of now, it's showing me some kind of a warnings which are associated with this virtual machine, but that's perfectly fine. We can totally ignore that warning. We don't need to worry about that. The deployment is successfully done. This is a virtual machine which belongs to zone 1. And same way, obviously, if I go to my resource group, I'll be able to see that we will have another virtual machine which will belongs to, I navigated to a subscription. I have to go to a resource group. And inside the resource group, I'll be able to see another virtual machine which logically belongs to zone 2. this is VM2 belongs to zone 2. So I think this is perfectly fine. Our configuration works well. The deployment is done. Let's move forward to next step, which is task number 2. Now in the task number 2, we are going to focus on managing compute and storage scaling for virtual machines. In this case, first we are going to our virtual machine number 1, and inside that availability plus scale configuration is there, where we're going to choose size. So let me go back to my virtual machine number 1. In the left side where we have availability plus scale, I'm going to click on size. Remember, size option is going to allow you to change vertical scaling of this virtual machines. So when we do inside this, it's showing me that we have a virtual machine size which we have selected, which is actually D2SV3. If I want to change the size, I can go to D2ADS V4 something is there, which is V5, which is here. So let's say I'm going to see V4, which is D2ADS, which is this one, D2DSV4. Now it's showing me D2DSV4 is the size which you can select, which is going to have a compute configuration associated with this. If you want to resize this, you can click on resize, and that's actually going to resize the virtual machine. When you do this, it's also showing me here that do you want to resize to size which is this. If the virtual machine is currently running, changing its size will cause to be restarted. Remember, whenever you do vertical scaling, virtual machine is going to be restarted with that. I am going to click on resize. If you take some time, we'll wait for this process to complete. Now as you can see, the resizing virtual machine is actually taking time. So this is actually taking longer than usual. Maybe this can be because of the lab environment configuration. It's showing me 6 minutes right now, but logically this should not take this much time. Now we have a limited time associated with this lab, so I'm not waiting for this further. I am going to move forward to the other configuration so that we can check those things also. Like the next thing is I have to go to the settings section. Inside the settings we have a disk section, and in the disk section we can actually focus on create and attach a new disk. Remember, by default we have one disk, which is our operating system disk, which is already part of this virtual machine. We can create and attach a new data disk which is associated here. I can provide the name of the disk, which can be VM1 disk 1. I can choose what kind of a storage type I want. So let's say I'm going to choose standard HDD, which is here. And then the size of this we are keeping 32 GB. All other things are fine. We'll click on apply, and after this the disk has been created. We can also click on detach. If necessary, we can configure that thing. So once it is attached, we can actually detach the disk if you want to use it later on for the other purpose actually. So right now this disk is going to be attached with this virtual machine. You can also search for the disk, and then you can get that particular disk available in the separate object inside that. So that is something which we can do. Now we are not focusing on that right now because this updation of the virtual machine is still going on into that. But yes, this disk is going to be available to you as a separate disk. After this, I'm going into the settings blade section, and then I'm going to click on size and performance. Sorry, that is something which we have to do inside the disk actually. So once the disk is created, which is right now getting created associations with this, I will go back to the resource group. Inside the resource group, I will be able to find my disk, which is VM1 disk 1. And inside the disk, we can go into the settings, and we have size plus performance. This is a place where we can actually change the storage type from HDD to SSD kind of a thing. So by default, that was HDD which we have selected. Now if I want to change it to SSD, you can see that is something which we can change here, and then we can click on save also after this. It's showing me in the steps that after this you can actually go into the data disk, you can attach the existing disk, and this way you can actually change the type of the disk, and then you can reattach to your virtual machine with that. Now these steps I'm not doing right now because the processing is actually taking longer than usual time, but yes, you can detach a disk, you can attach a disk, and you can configure as you want. After this, we are moving forward to the next part, which is actually Azure Virtual Machine Scale Set Architectural Diagram. This is basically showing you that you can create a virtual machine scale set where you can create multiple virtual machines at the same time. When you do this thing, these are going to be a virtual machines mostly connected with some kind of a load balancing configuration. And it is going to be part of one clustered scenario in which you're going to have one virtual network with this multiple virtual machines inside that. We are going to do this in the task 3, and then we are going to configure the auto scale configuration for that virtual machine scale set in the task 4. So let's just get started with task number 3, which is create and configure Azure Virtual Machine Scale Set.
Hey
guys, sorry for interruption. My name is Maruti and I'm here to make a very important announcement. I hope you are liking our videos and you're doing a continuous learning with us on an Azure Cloud and AI related topics. If you are enjoying this thing, I'm going to announce skilltech.club, which is our upcoming website, which is going to be launched very soon. We are here to tell you one thing, that everyone who is a subscriber of this particular channel will get Azure Cloud and Azure AI related certification courses free of cost in skilltech.club. So you will be a part of the skilltech.club kind of a membership automatically free of cost. And everyone who's a subscriber of this particular channel will get those benefits which are available in that. So what are you waiting for? I request you to please subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends and families if they are also interested in Azure Cloud and AI learning. That's it from my side. Now you can carry on with your learning. Thank you. In order to do that, I'm going to search for virtual machine scale sets. Remember, it's a separate service, so it's not only a single virtual machine, it's a virtual machine scale set which we are trying to create right now. I am going to click on create. In the basic section, we are still going to choose a same resource group. We'll give the name of this VMSS11. This is something which is going to be a virtual machine scale set name. Location is fine. In the zone, I'm going to choose all three zones. So basically it's going to choose zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 for this one. And then I have to specify what kind of an orchestration mode I want. Now I am going to choose uniform, which is like this is going to be optimized for large scale stateless workloads, and it's going to be uniformly distributing all the instances across multiple zones. So I'm going to go with uniform. After this, in the security type, we are going to choose standard. In the instance configuration, we'll choose Windows Server 2019 data center image, which is perfectly fine. And in the scaling options, which is configured here, they are saying that review and take the default. So we will change this in the next task. So basically scaling part is something which we are not changing right now. We are just keeping it default, which is showing me that the scaling mode is manual, as well as it's showing me that by default there will be 2 instance count which is going to be there. So basically it's going to create one virtual machine scale set with 2 instances of virtual machine associated with that. We will take care of the scaling later on. In the other configurations, I have to provide my size of the virtual machine, which is D2SV3, which is perfectly fine. And then in the password and username, we are exactly same way providing some local admin as a username and our secure password, which we can use when we want to connect to this virtual machine using administrator account. After all these things, already have a Windows Server license. We are going to uncheck this. So this is already there, which is fine. We'll click on next. In the spot, we don't need to do anything. In the disk, we don't need to do anything. And I think in the networking also, we don't need to do anything. So we are just going to choose next. In the networking section, we are just going to change the name of this particular virtual network, because by default, it is selecting some virtual network configurations with that. I am going to click on edit virtual network. I'll give the name of the virtual network as per the configuration, which is VMSSVNet. The address for this, I'm going to choose 10.82 with 20. The subnet name, we are going to give subnet 0 with the range which is given here as 10.82.00/24. So I think range is correct. We don't need to change it. One network, one subnet is what we are configuring inside this. After this, we'll click on save. In the networking tab, we have network interface configuration also. In this case, we are going to create a separate configuration for this. So you can see right now it is having network security group, which is basic for this NIC. We do not want that. So we are going to click on the edit network interface configuration. And in this, in the subnet configuration, after this, we have NIC network security group. As per the instructions, we have to choose advanced for this, and it's actually going to create a new NSG for my virtual machine scale set, and that is going to have a name VMSS NSG. We're okay with this configuration. In all other things, I think everything is fine. In the add inbound configuration rule, we have to specify the specific rule associations with that. So in this NSG, where we are configuring this, we'll click on create new. We'll provide this name, which is VMSS NSG. In the add inbound rule, as it is mentioned here, we are going to specify that source will be any, port range will be fine, destination is also any, service is going to be HTTP. The action which we are going to do is allow, and the priority for this is going to be 1010. The name of this rule, we are going to do allow HTTP. So basically we are specifying that in this virtual machine scale set, we are going to have incoming request which is allowed on HTTP with this particular rule, and that is what we are specifying. By default, there is one rule which I'm not changing, which is on SSH TCP 22 or something like that. We are okay with this, and then I'm going to click on OK. I also want to check one more thing, that if I go back to this particular virtual machine scale set after this, is it having a same kind of a configuration with my image, because it's showing me 22. So I just want to make sure that it is having Windows Server. Yeah, this is having Windows Server 2019 data center only. So that is perfectly fine. We are okay with disk, we are okay with networking, we got the virtual network, we got the configuration with this, subnet 0 is our subnet, and we have done the network security group also in the advanced section. This is all configuration which is done. After this, we are just going to click on load balancing configuration. So in the networking tab only, if I scroll down, we have a load balancing configuration available here. For this load balancing configuration, we can choose Azure Load Balancer, or we can choose Application Gateway also. If you are planning to go with layer 7 load balancing, then you can go with Application Gateway, which can give you additional benefits of HTTP, HTTPS, URL based routing, SSL termination, and other benefits compared to normal Azure Load Balancer. In our case, we are going to choose Azure Load Balancer only, and then we are going to click on Create a Load Balancer. In the Create Load Balancer pop-up, we are going to give a name of this, which is VMSS LB, which is a load balancer configuration with this. All other things, we are going to keep it by default. We do not want to change anything in that, so we'll just click on Create. Once this is done, it is mentioned here that please pause for a minute and review what you have done at this point, because you have configured a virtual machine scale set with disk, with networking. In that also you have created network security group, and then you have also created load balancer with the public IP. So that is what we have done in this tab. It's an important tab and important configuration for this lab. After this, we'll click on next. In the management, all we have to do is boot diagnostics we are going to disable, and then in the next tab where we have health, we are not going to change anything. We are just going to click on next and review plus create. What exactly you're doing right now, you are not creating two virtual machines, you're creating virtual machine scale set with two instances which are inside that. So you can see instance count is showing me 2 here. I'm going to click on create, and it is going to take some time to create my virtual machine scale set. Remember guys, creating two separate virtual machine is a different thing. That's what we have done in the first step, and creating a virtual machine scale set which is scalable is something which is a different thing. This time you are getting a customized virtual network, network security group, and a load balancer which is also getting provisioned with this virtual machine scale set. These all things are going to be configured, but deployment is going to take some time. So let's wait for this time to complete this. And we are done up to task number 3. In the task 4, we will move forward after this, where we are going to scale our Azure Virtual Machine scale set. Yes, deployment of virtual machine scale set is successfully completed. If that is the case, I'll click on go to resource, because I want to check my 2 instances of virtual machines are running or not. Yes, it is showing me 2 out of 2 succeeded, so no issues at all. And if we go into this, we have to focus on availability per scale. So this is again the same section, but this time, because it's a virtual machine scale set, you can see I'm getting options like scaling, availability, and size. When you have this thing, let's focus on configuration of the custom configuration with the auto scale. So in this case, we are going to select custom auto scale, and then we're going to change the scale mode based on the metrics, and we're going to add a rule. In order to do this, you have to click on scaling. Inside the scaling, we are going to choose custom auto scale. And inside this also, we have a configuration that how do you want to do auto scale configuration with this. In this, we have 2 options. We can scale based on the metric, or we can scale to a specific instance count. Obviously, scale to a specific instance count is like manually you're going to increase the instance count, or maybe you can go with scale based on the metric, where you will be having an option to add a rule configuration with that. I am going to specify some rule configuration here. So I'm going to specify that for my current resource, which is VMSS1, I am going to choose that if my percentage of CPU, which is given here, if my percentage CPU is greater than 70%, which is here, for the duration of 10 minutes, this is something which is like it's going to monitor that for the 10 long minutes, and the time grain statistics is something which is 1, and which is aggregation is average, then I'm going to take an operation which is increase percentage by, and that is something which is going to be how many increase instance count you want to association with that. Now this is the whole configuration which is available here. It's the same as it is. So the cooldown minute is what we are specifying 5, the percentage we are specifying with 50, and this is something which is a configuration which is given here. Now I'm okay with this. I'm going to click on add, and once we do this thing, you can see that this kind of a configuration rule is actually created here. Now if this rule is satisfied, we have to make sure that we have to save this configuration, and according to that we can actually specify maximum or minimum instances. Now in this case I can specify whatever numbers we want, but when we are doing this thing, I'm specifying that minimum is going to be 2 instances. Let's say maximum is going to be 5 instances, and default is also going to be 2 instances like this. So in this case I'm going to keep it same. Now it is not mentioned in this, but still we are going to check and change that the maximum instance which we can go is 5. Once we are done with all the things, make sure we are going to save this configuration. So I'm going to click on save. This auto scale configuration is going to take some time to update this thing, and according to that it's now continuously going to monitor my CPU percentage which is used with this. Once this is done, we are also going to configure scale in rule now. So that was a scale out rule. Now let's focus on the scale in rule. So in the scale in rule, we are again going to click on add a rule. I am going to change my operator, which is going to be less than. So I'm going to choose less than, and then I'm going to set a threshold which is actually going to be 30. And when we do this thing, if the threshold is actually set up to 30, then we are going to add a configuration here that we are going to specify that threshold is actually 30, and then the duration is going to be set up here. And then if that kind of thing is there, then the decreased number of instances is going to be 1. We'll add this rule, and this is going to be my scale out rule. This is my scale in rule which we have specified for this one, and basically it's going to play between this particular range. Be sure to save this thing. So that is also something which we are going to save right now. And exactly below that, now they're asking us to change the instance limit, which is going to be minimum 2, maximum 10, and then default is something which is going to be 2. With this configuration of this, we are specifying that the instance limit is going to be 2 to 10, which is a range. We'll click on save, and now depends upon the requirement and the CPU usage is actually going to increase and decrease number of instances. It will not be more than 10 any point of time. It will not be less than 2 any point of time, because that's how we have configured this. We have saved this configuration, and with this we are actually done with the virtual machine scale set instance configuration. Right now if I go into this instances section, it's going to show me that I have 2 instances, but if the load increase, automatically it's going to scale it up, or I can say scale out and scale in, depends upon the configuration which we have given. With this we are done with task number 4 also, where virtual machine scale set configuration is done. So virtual machine creation, virtual machine scale set creation, both are actually done. Remember, it is saying here that if you're interested using Azure PowerShell, you can actually try task number 5 and 6 also. Let's start with task number 5, which is going to take us to shell.azure.com. As I told you, you can open a Cloud Shell by 2 different ways. You can actually go to this Cloud Shell icon here, or in the separate browser tab, you can actually open shell.azure.com, and when you go into that, it's going to give you an option to do the same thing but with a bigger window. In this window, I'm going to run the following command first, which is going to create a new Azure virtual machine using PowerShell. This command is very straightforward and simple. So you can see right now the command is new AZ-VM, in which you have to pass on the parameters like what kind of a resource group you want to use, what will be the name of your virtual machine, location, image, size, zone, and the credentials which you want to associate with this. In our case, when we execute the command, we are not going to provide a hard-coded credentials here. This get credentials command is actually going to ask a credential for this virtual machine when we execute that. So let me hit enter. It's asking me what will be the credential for this particular user. I am going to use a user which is going to be local admin. And then with this, I'm providing a password which is going to be my password. And that's going to be set up for this particular virtual machine. The creating Azure resource progress is showing here. It's going to be increased percentage wise, and once it is successfully done, it's actually going to show me that my virtual machine creation is successfully done. You can get the details of the virtual machines by executing a next command, which is get AZ-VM. Remember guys, these commands are important, so understanding of the command is going to help you when you're going for AZ-104 certification exam. So it's easy to understand, I hope, and you have to remember what parameters and configurations we can pass on in this. The progress is done. It's showing me the virtual machine provisioning state is succeeded. So this virtual machine is also created. In order to get the details of this virtual machine, I can fire this command, which is get AZ-VM, where I have to provide my configuration like which virtual machine, which resource group I'm dealing with. And when I do this, you can see it is showing me that in this resource group, we have three different resources. We have one virtual machine, which we have just now created. We have two virtual machines which are running separately, and we have one virtual machine scale set also, which we have created with that. This all things are actually configured here. Now let's move forward to the next step, in which they are saying stop the Azure virtual machine, so we can actually deallocate virtual machines by confirming this thing. Let's execute that command also. I'm providing my virtual machine here. You can see it is showing me running in the previous command, but now once I stop this, it's going to ask me, do you want to stop this? I'm going to say yes, and then it is going to be stopped. Yes, it is successfully done. You can see that it's showing me status is succeeded. Now if I execute the previous command, which is get AZ-VM, it's actually going to show me that my virtual machine is stopped, it is deallocated. This means that my all three commands are working: creating virtual machine, then getting the virtual machine information, and stopping virtual machine. All three are working fine. With this, we'll move forward to the next task, which is creating a virtual machine using CLI. In this case, we will go to the Cloud Shell and we will switch this Cloud Shell to Bash. PowerShell and Bash commands are having slight differences inside that, but understanding wise, if you understand one, you can easily understand the other one also. In the Bash, we are going to do the similar kind of a thing, but it's going to be a much simpler command. So I'm going to fire one command, which is AZ-VM create. It's basically going to create a new virtual machine. This time when I'm creating a virtual machine, we are using Ubuntu based operating system here. So Ubuntu 22.4 is the image which we are providing here. And then we are going to specify some kind of a virtual machine size configurations with that. Once we are executing this command, you can see it's going to ask me that it's going to execute this command. It's going to create my SSH based configuration for this Ubuntu based Linux based virtual machine. And if this is done, I can actually showcase that virtual machine with the help of this command, which is AZ-VM show. So basically here you have a commands like new AZ-VM and get AZ-VM, while in this case you have AZ-VM create and AZ-VM show kind of a command. Let's wait for this process to complete. As you can see, my virtual machine is successfully created. Let's try to get the details of that by executing a second command, which is AZ-VM show. We are getting the details of this virtual machines, and it's a lengthy details which are coming here, but you can see that this is showing me that the virtual machine is actually created with the size, with this configuration, and yeah, all the details are actually available here. Same way, verify the PowerShell state is VM running, so that is something which is going to be provided here. Or alternatively, you can go to your resource group and you can check that also. So you can go to your Azure Portal, you can go to that resource group in which you have created this, and the name of the virtual machine is my CLI VM. So logically that should be available here, which is this one, my CLI VM. So this is something which is here. This is a Linux based virtual machine. So this is Ubuntu 20.2.4. The status is running. It's all good. If all good, we are going to execute the last command, which is AZ-VM deallocate. And it's basically going to deallocate this virtual machine. It's going to stop that thing. Once we execute this command, it's giving you one note here that, do you know, when you use Azure to stop your virtual machine, the status is deallocated. This means that any non-static public IP address which are associated with the virtual machines are now released, and you stop paying for the virtual machine's compute cost. So basically, when you stop or deallocate virtual machine, it's going to save a lot of cost. Most of the time, the cost is going to be reduced by almost 80%, and that's how deallocating a virtual machine is actually going to help you to save your cost. Now the command is executed successfully. I can just go and refresh this option. It's going to show me that my virtual machine status is not running anymore. It's going to be deallocated. You can see stopped, deallocated, which works fine. That's it for this particular lab. I hope you understood this lab. Let's fire the last command also, which is going to delete everything. So we are going to execute the last command, which is AZ group delete with this particular resource group name. Now, obviously, they are asking me, are you sure you want to delete this particular operation? I'm going to say yes, but I forgot to mention my resource group name properly there. So I actually have to remove this dummy and then I have to provide my resource group name. So I'll take my resource group name, which is this. And because we have created multiple virtual machines, it's better to delete this as soon as possible. So I'll just paste it here. I'll hit enter. I'm going to say yes. And yeah, it's showing me running. So basically, once this is done, all the things which are inside this resource group, like this resource group is actually having 27 items inside that. All of these things will be deleted in one shot when we execute this command. Let's wait for some time. It will be done. But in my case, I'm going to done with this. I'll make sure that it's going to be deleted first, and then I'm going to sign off from this lab environment. For you guys, thank you so much for watching this lab. Let's move to the next module. Thank you.